All right. Hello there. This is Denise, and this is the Activated Asana Podcast. And once again, we're here talking about yoga, movement, health outcomes, all kinds of juicy, interesting topics around health, wellness, well-being, and our yoga practice. And today I'm with Angela Smith, and Angela is a yoga teacher in Scotland. She's a very experienced yoga teacher. She's done many years of training and updating her own education and applying her education in many different ways. Everything from regular yoga teachers to yoga for pregnancy and yoga for various health conditions and whatnot. So she is very experienced, has a complementary therapy experience as well. So she's very well-rounded in her wellness and health education. And she is somebody who teaches Activated Asana and is actually like a coaching member of our academy, the Activated Asana Apprenticeship Academy, where she helps me coach and mentor some of our members. So good morning, Angela.
Morning. Well, afternoon here for me, actually.
Afternoon for you, morning for me. That's fantastic. So I wanted to start the conversation today looking at, kind of your yoga training journey, I guess, and how that has evolved over time. When did you first start? Like, how long ago was your first training?
It was about 10 years ago that I embarked on a foundation course. At that point, I wasn't quite sure if I didn't do it to train as a teacher. It was just simply to deepen my knowledge of yoga. So I did that and really enjoyed it. And then at the end of the course, decided I wanted to do the teacher training. So luckily for me, it was a prerequisite of the teacher training to have done the foundation course first, which I had already done by that point.
Oh, can I just interrupt you for one sec? Yeah. So were you practicing for many years before you took that foundation course?
Yes. I practiced, first encountered yoga about 25 years ago, maybe, when I first practiced yoga, but I wasn't into it in a big way, shall we say, at that point. I found I was into more sort of dynamic and power exercise at that time. And although there was something about it that attracted me, but I wasn't quite ready to devote myself to yoga at that point in my life, shall we say. And then it wasn't until probably over a decade later, maybe even 15 years later, that I went back to practice, found a really nice teacher, a gentleman in his 70s actually, who was a Buddhist. Went back to a class with him and loved it. It certainly wasn't power yoga, not at all, but I loved it. And I loved all the, he was very big into the other limbs of yoga, not just asana, obviously. So I got a good rounding in that, being one of his pupils. And then I decided to do my foundation course and deepen my practice a little.
Yeah. And that was a fairly robust course too, wasn't it? The foundation?
That was over a year. It was sort of a weekend, a month for 10 months sort of thing, just to go a bit more deeply. And yes, you definitely covered a lot more than you did in a typical yoga class. And that was when I thought, right, I really quite fancy training as a teacher myself. And then I applied for the course. I had the foundation under my belt, which was good. It was a good stepping stone. I was accepted.
What did it have hours assigned to it?
The foundation was 60 hours, the foundation course, 60-hour course. So I embarked on the teacher training, which was a 500-hour course. That was with Yoga Scotland, and I had to travel down to Edinburgh. So that was where I was living at the time. It was about a 4-hour drive each way. So it meant staying over for the course weekends. So it was like one course weekend every 4 to 6 weeks over a 2-year period. And it was structured in that way so that you, rather than, go abroad and do a 1 month or 2 month intensive and come back a yoga teacher and having to start teaching all of a sudden, And I know many people that have done 500-hour courses and they don't teach because they were like a rabbit stuck in the headlights once they were a qualified teacher. So I think the way Yoga Scotland did it was good because it was spread out over a 2-year period. And in between those teaching weekends, we had tons of work to do. We had lots and lots of work as part of the course, which we had to do. And the biggest part of which was probably the daily reflection diary that we had to keep for every day of that whole 2-year course.
Wow.
Yes,
that's quite a commitment, but I bet it was pretty good for your personal development. Hey,
definitely. Some days I wrote more than others, but wow, it was, when you look back, read it back now and read through the volume of work that we covered, it was a lot. Yeah, so it was quite a commitment for the 2 years. Because at the end of the first year we had 200 hours under our belt, more than 200 hours under our belt by that time. So we had to start teaching then. So the added bonus as well was that for the second part of the course, the second year of the course, you were actually teaching, and you were teaching for a whole year by the time you actually fully qualified for the 500-hour course. So most of us, I think there was 18 on the course, and most of us have continued because we were used to it by then. We had to teach for a year. You only had to do one class at least. I did have more than one, but you had to do at least one class on a weekly basis, a regular weekly class. And it got you into the groove basically, and it was easier to continue once you were qualified than just give up because you had kind of been forced to do it, but in a good way. You were encouraged.
It seems like such a great way to kind of get your foot in the door in teaching, and then you're still like going back to your teachers, right? Your trainers, and you're able to share and refine and whatnot. Like the whole, like I always say here, we always say deer in the headlights. Isn't that funny?
Oh, well, we're rabbit in the headlights here. I could have said
rabbit, deer,
in the headlights.
Cute little animal in the headlights.
Yes.
So many people do feel like that after they like rush through a 1 month or 2 month intensive, and then boom, because there isn't that time to kind of go back and forth and get feedback and discuss, what you're experiencing as a teacher, right? And like get your confidence built up and everything. So I'm so interested in the way you did your training, because it's I think it's quite unique. Normally what we see is like the 1 month intensive, or the, say for a 200-hour, 2 month intensive, maybe for a 300-hour, or it's stretched out over usually really only like 8 or 9 months, maybe, like from maybe October, say, to March, or from January to June, or something like that. And, I've taught many of those. And the stretched out ones do give a bit more time for integration in between the weekends, or however it's mapped out. But otherwise it is a lot. And your yoga teacher training is so much personal development. And then, on top of that, now you have to be prepared to put yourself out there and start to teach. So I find that making that transition can be very difficult for people. It's not sort of like you had to be like pushed into the pool, right? And so you just have to start swimming. So. Yeah.
It was a very supportive environment because we were all in the same boat. The 2 hatha tutors we had were amazing, really, really decades of experience. And one of them was actually my pregnancy yoga teacher as well. She was actually a very experienced midwife herself, who actually did her midwifery in India for a number of years. So that brought a whole lot of other interesting aspects to the course, both courses that I did. So that was really good. But, when you're in a group we almost became a family over that 2-year period. It was a great community that we had, and we still keep in touch yet. And I didn't mind putting myself up there in front of my peers because, they were very supportive. They were they said what they thought, because that's what we wanted. We wanted proper feedback. So they did give their honest opinion, but it was delivered in such a nice way and totally supportive, etc. So we really grew together over that period, and I think it was a really good way to learn. You felt safe when you started with your own students and the classes that we had to teach from sort of the end of year one onwards. We felt supported all the time. If we had any issues in class, we could go back to our tutors and say, oh my goodness, this happened this week, what do I do about that, whatever. And they always had an answer for us, and you remembered that. You didn't need to ask them a second time because you knew then, and your own confidence grew and grew and grew the more you sort of took on board, basically. So I know for me, it was a good way for me to learn, because I know I can't seem to take a lot of stuff in one go. I have to, my brain won't process it. I have to take my time, practice this bit, got that now, do the next bit. And it was a really good way to learn. I think a lot of people might be in that boat as well. It's a really, really good way to learn. So,
Angela, I would say definitely. Like, I don't think that's just you. And, the key thing I think for people to understand is that, you're teaching movement, largely. Like, yes, you go to yoga teacher training and you're learning yogic philosophy and various techniques that have to do with meditation and cleansing and all kinds of, self-development, self-care things. But when it comes to teaching an asana class, now you're teaching movement for the most part. And, you cannot learn movement by watching somebody else move. You might be able to assess movement, but you have to do the movement yourself, right? That kinesthetic learning. Yeah. And it's happening on multiple levels, right? You're like learning it in your own body. Then you're learning how to demonstrate and to articulate to a student. And then, you're learning like the effect on the body, and you need to be able to talk about the benefits and all of that as well. So there's sort of multiple things that you need to understand within your own body and within your own ability to articulate that, you just need practice. You need physical kinesthetic practice to develop that. It's not going to just happen, from watching somebody else do it, which always kind of like amazes me now, like that so much of these like foundational yoga teacher trainings now just happen online. And, I know we can watch videos and stuff like that, but there is that community needs to happen somehow. You have to work a little harder, I think, to create community on some kind of online program. It can be done for sure. But, like in my own academy, students are coming from all over the world, but we work so hard to create that sense of community. And the idea that others are like your peers are in the same boat and also want you to do well. I mean, we really need that as humans. We need that community and support and connection.
Definitely. And I mean, we were chatting a bit about online courses just now. Well, I mean, I have to say the absolute best training I've ever did online is with yourself. So I have to honestly say that. But I also need to say that I find that I was part of a community with that as well. I don't know, we're more used to using online offerings now because after lockdown, etc. So a lot more things did move online, and many have not came offline again, they've stayed online. But to access world-class training with people from all around the world, it's the only way you can do it, unless you're really rich and can go jetting off all to all these different countries all the time, which most of us can't do, on multiple times. So it is a good resource for connecting with people from all over the world, and you just get such a broader range of opinions of experience that different experiences that they've had. And so it's just really, really interesting, and I still feel part of a family, even with that. So I would definitely say online it's definitely got its place, and it's definitely a much more modern way, I suppose, now, and it reaches more people.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I do remember, when you were a student and remember, how you were struck by how different, like the emphasis in how we approached asana practice when you started doing activated asana as compared to your previous trainings, even as wonderful and robust as they were. We were in activated asana, we emphasize different things. And so I know with my own experience in training to be a yoga teacher, I definitely felt the emphasis was on going deeper into postures. I would, as somebody who teaches movement and anatomy and physiology, I would say that maybe in a more accurate language, saying that we're always seems to be like we're trying to increase our range of motion around joints, right? And so for lay people, they would think of that as stretching, and a lot of people think that yoga is stretching. And would you say that that was the approach that was kind of being taken?
Yeah, I would say that most people think yoga is stretching, and it's just trying to re-educate people. Well, I've certainly been doing that with my students, re-educating them, because I taught that way initially. I was actually one of those people. I was teaching that way. And what I would say about going back to my 500-hour training, obviously that encompassed all aspects of yoga, so not just the asana practice, everything else as well. But which was great because I wanted to do that. But since I've been teaching, most students, not them all, but most of them, they really want to focus on the asana practice. So I think I found your training really useful because that is the bread and butter of your yoga class. That is the main part, the juicy part of your yoga class. And that is the part where people can become a cropper. I don't know if that's a phrase you use over there, is it? No, people can fall down a hole, basically, in the asana practice. It's the most, it's the scariest, it's the most dangerous part, because you can't injure someone during relaxation. You can't injure someone during meditation, but you can injure someone during the asana practice. So I think, doing a training like the Activated Asana training, it makes your practice and it makes your teaching so much safer and more beneficial to the students. So I would say that for starters. Now, going back to the original question, what was it again? It's gone completely out of my head.
The emphasis on stretching, like
the emphasis on stretching.
I'll just share that for me. There, when I was in teacher training, both the 200 and 300, with very, very experienced teachers, because you see, they had all been. I had my main teacher was an Indian man who came from a long line of yogis. And even so, with that lineage and background, and then the other very experienced teachers, students were getting injured, and they were being put, they would be assisted into postures that they kind of had no business being into, because there's no way they could get themselves there themselves. So I don't mean like supporting somebody so they can do headstand, although even that maybe they don't have the strength to be in headstand, right? And they're not ready for it. But those kind of postures, like helping somebody with a balancing posture or sometimes even an inversion, is different than helping somebody do the splits or get their leg behind their head or get into some of the places you can go in full wheel pose. There are places where I was seeing students really being injured. Oftentimes they were hip issues, SI joint, and low back.
I was one of those, SI joint. That was me.
And I think it comes from the aim was to get people deeper into postures, which again, in my language and thinking, because of my background in fitness training and anatomy and physiology for massage therapy and all of that. I assumed that, okay, well, it seems to be the goal is to increase range of motion at the joint. And again, knowing what I knew previously, I'm like, well, there are lots of ways to do that besides like pushing somebody into it. And, there are better ways of doing it and safer ways of doing it. But that just seemed to be the goal. And I feel like that has been a big, I feel like that's definitely pointing us in the wrong direction. If we make the asana practice about that. What were things that you were seeing in your training and maybe subsequent trainings? What were you seeing?
In the training, I wouldn't say it was quite as bad as that. So there was no physical pushing students into postures at all. There was none of that, but you were encouraged to go deeper, let your hips sink deeper, and things like this. And what I found, since I could never do the splits ever, I couldn't do this. I could get down so far, but I couldn't get into full splits. And I haven't been trying to get into full splits, but since I've started practicing using organization and activation, so in the method I was trained for in Activated Asana, I can almost do the splits now. And I haven't been trying to do them, but I can't even remember how I discovered that. But one day I tried it for a laugh just to show how far I couldn't get down. And I was amazed when I almost got into full splits. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show that you can increase your range of motion without actually stretching, because I hadn't been, right. I had been activating. So, but no, during the training, it was more stretching, getting deeper into postures. As I say, nobody was forced into a posture. However, there were a few injuries. People just doing their back in various different ways, and a lot of hip issues. A lot of people suddenly developing hip issues, probably because of the amount of times they were practicing, which had obviously increased a lot compared to what they were doing before they embarked on the teacher training. But it was always getting into these deep open postures as well. And so quite a few of the students were having a lot. There wasn't any major catastrophic injuries, but there was an awful lot of small injuries along the 2-year course. And I myself, I'd had niggles in my SI joint prior to even embarking on teacher training, which got worse during the volume of practice I was doing in comparison to before. It got worse, and I just thought, it's something that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life now. I've got an issue there. It niggled and became even more painful on some occasions on a daily basis, and it's gone now. I don't have it at all. It's just gone.
I'm glad you even remember. Because so many people, once an issue goes away, they forget they ever had it. So no. I'm glad you kept a record of that.
Oh no, I had it for years. Yeah. I mean, I actually thought that something structurally had been damaged. And unless, I hadn't had it scanned or anything, I was just living with the pain and discomfort. And I really thought that if I was scanned, they would discover that something was torn and needed to be surgically repaired or whatever. And I just wasn't going down that road. So I was just putting up with the pain and discomfort. And it's gone. It's completely gone. So
yeah, that's wonderful.
I'm delighted.
And just like, let's just give some encouragement to people. I know like a lot of people are in that situation, they've, let's be fair. On one hand, there's really few movement practices that take you into all the different corners of your body and different joint movements and positions like yoga does. There's like some like animal flow and stuff like that are happening out there, some of those options. But, yoga is really known for getting into like all of these different possibilities at the joints. And I think that's fantastic, but it does tend to illuminate things that are going on in your body that you may not have been aware of, due to other activities you do, or perhaps due to lack of activity, or to, your normal everyday sitting posture at your desk, or, maybe you drive a lot or whatever. And there could be, adaptations happening in your body due to these other aggressions that, your body is being subjected to. And then you do your yoga practice and it kind of illuminates things that are going on. But it can also stress those joints and tissues that have been, where you have sort of a gradual onset injury starting or something like that. It can really exacerbate that. So I've seen a lot of studies that talk about how people find that yoga will exacerbate injuries or old injuries or something. But I think you can find, I guess, anecdotally, when you talk to people who practice yoga, many people can heal their injuries through yoga practice, but it depends on what you're doing in the yoga practice. Because if you go to practice and you're just stretching all the time, that is not a very healing modality. People think it is, right? It's funny. Hey, have you noticed that?
Totally.
All of these years that I've been in fitness and wellness and rehabilitation and stuff, it just seems like everybody thinks that stretching solves all the problems, but it really doesn't. It causes a lot more problems than it solves. And I don't know how many people are actually waking up to it. You can find lots of information on it, but it seems like it's just part of the collective consciousness or something. And that is going to take a while to change that, I think,
It'll definitely take time, because things are quoted over and over again without any reference to current research. Something that was correct as far as we knew 20 years ago is not necessarily correct now, because there's new research that has proved that theory wrong or they found something better. But people that aren't aware of the new research, they keep, I remember something about this. This is right. I've heard this. I studied this, and this is correct, but it's maybe not correct anymore. So no,
oh yes, and I would say I became so aware of that as a teacher in the massage college, because there were things in the textbook that we as teachers and practitioners, we knew that was not correct information anymore, and we knew through even experience that that couldn't possibly be correct.
Yeah.
And yet it's still in the textbooks. So people are still going to be learning it. So we used to have a saying that science progresses one funeral at a time, because it's like the people who win the Nobel Prize for their research, they kind of have to pass away before new information is sort of allowed to circulate or make its way into the textbooks. So, there's just, that's kind of why when you're teaching movement or you're interacting with people in such a profound way, really, because people's movement lives are so fundamental to their quality of life, you kind of do have to stay up to date on new information, and sometimes new information is not good information either. So it really does mean that we have to keep experimenting, with our own body and our own students, so that we see what are the outcomes that happen when we practice a certain way. And so that's kind of what brings me to wondering, you were saying how you did teach with a stretching focus, because that's how you were trained. And then you started teaching more in Activated Asana, we prioritize stability first. Which seems sort of, I guess, to a lot of people that are like, well, I'm coming to yoga because I want to be more flexible. But it's like your body's not going to let you be more flexible until it knows you're stable. Yeah. Like if you have control over your joints, then kind of like you doing the splits, now you healed your SI joint and you've been working to strengthen the tissues around your hips by activating. Now your nervous system is going to go, okay, if you want to go a little bit further, I think you're ready. I'm going to let you. But when your hips are not stable and your nervous system knows that, because it's very sensitive to things like that, it's not going to let you do, what people know as hip opening postures. I would again say just lots of range of motion. It's not going to let you access more range of motion until it feels like you're in control of that range of motion, right? And then all of a sudden you discover that you have more range than you knew you had, because you haven't been emphasizing, you haven't sort of been putting the cart before the horse, right? You've been strengthening your tissues so that they can handle more mobility. And so all of a sudden it's there, and you weren't specifically chasing that. You know how people like chase that stretching sensation all the time, and they need more and more of it to be satisfied. But that's kind of, if you start emphasizing activation, that they're getting lots of sensation, but it's a different kind of sensation than stretching sensation. So I'm just really interested in like, how did you make that transition with your students? Because like, did they miss the stretching sensation, and like, what are the outcomes they've been getting?
Yeah, well, the first thing that struck me when I sort of I sort of changed overnight, basically. I didn't even break them in gently. Overnight. And the first thing that struck me was their lack of stability, how they weren't stable at all, really. A lot of the ones that were really, they could get themselves into lots of lovely looking postures, but they weren't stable because their connective tissue was at end range. They'd been overworking it at end range all the time, overstretching, and they weren't very stable. So it surprised me how some of the ones that you thought were really quite good really weren't good at balancing at all, and they didn't feel stable in them, probably emotionally and physically. So we worked on a lot of balance and a lot of stability to begin with. And as that improved, their strength improved as well, holding balances for longer, etc. I think sometimes I maybe overdid it, and I maybe did, holding balance postures for too long and too much of them in one class, and they're thinking like, this is a bit boring, because they like a bit of flow. But they stuck in there. And then when they started seeing the results, how robust their bodies were becoming, how much stronger they were becoming, they were hooked after that. And then I pared it down to what you kind of recommend anyway, about three to six postures in each class is long enough to be focusing on your stability. But really, every posture you can focus on stability, no matter though it's a balance posture or not. So no, they took it well. And I actually heard some of them speaking about it one day, saying, "Oh, that that organization and activation stuff that she keeps banging on about all the time." So that wasn't the worst thing to start with, but no, they are. I've got a good bunch, a good amount of students that have stayed with me all through the stretchy times and all through the new times since I have changed to the Activated Asana methodology. And I think they all agree that they're in a much better place now than they were. So I'm delighted, and they're delighted. So they're getting results. They're getting more results now. They're feeling stronger, and they'll tell you stories about, they had a fall outside the supermarket or something, or they almost had a fall outside the supermarket, but they felt, because putting it down to their practice, they managed to regain control and not actually go flat on their face in the car park because they managed, and they put that down to the strength. Excuse me, my dog is just edging her way here. They put that down to the strength that they're feeling in direct relation to the practice that they're doing with me. So no, so it's really good. So it's good to hear these real life stories, simple things, nothing mind blowing, but just simple daily things that people are discovering. They're getting in and out of, well, I teach seniors as well. I have regular students, and I also teach a chair class as well. Well, I say chair class, but I do get them out of the chair as much as I possibly can. And they're reporting things like, oh, I can get in and out of my car with much more ease now than I previously could, because they just feel stronger. So even in their 70s, 80s, and one lady's going to be celebrating her 90th birthday soon. Even at that age, they're all finding benefits. Their tissue is obviously still improving at that age, and they are gaining movement in their lives, which is really important for someone of that age. Tell you a funny story. This week after class, it's a Thursday class. One of my students, she lives about a couple of miles into the country outside the town we live. So I was taking her home, as I always do, because I operate a free service to take her home. My daughter drops her off, but I run her home after class. And in the class, this is the one that's 90 soon. And she said, "Oh, I really admire some of that students, some of your students. They're really coming along." They're really coming along, and they're getting much stronger now than they used to be. And the ones that walk with sticks, I'm feeling as though they're really improving. And I'm thinking, wow, you're the oldest one in the class, and here's her raving about everyone else's gains that they're making, sort of thing. So, but she doesn't see herself as 90.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yes, she doesn't see herself as 90 at all. She's the one that stacks up all the chairs at the end of class, and she's got my yoga mat and my bag in her arms ready to go at the end of class, because she knows I'm going to wait to run her home. So she could probably walk home, actually. She's so fit and able for her age. So yeah, so it's like things like that really means
what a difference it makes in their lives, of seniors, just to have, their activities of daily living, remain accessible so they can feel independent, right? And do things for themselves. I mean, it's so key to their quality of life. And the thing is, deep stretching postures are just not appropriate for them. And deep stretching postures are not appropriate for pregnancy and postpartum. And deep stretching postures are not appropriate for lots of athletes, so it's like we're doing with Activated Asana, we're making the practice accessible, challenging for those who need a challenge, gentler for those whose tissues are not up to more of a challenge. But it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy of building their stability, then their strength, then their mobility as their body gets ready for it. And the beauty of training for stability first is that you're going to strengthen the tissue, you're going to have a strategy for stabilizing, but you're also improving your proprioception. And that's, where where your body is in space. And you talked about this person who could catch themselves from falling. I've had so many people tell me that exact story, that they were going to wipe out, and they were able to catch themselves. And they were like, there's no way I could have ever done that before. I just knew how to control myself. Even if they go down, they can control themselves coming down, and that's quite an empowering feeling. It makes you feel much more secure in your body. And again, who doesn't need that? Whoever you are, you need that.
Totally.
Yes.
Another thing I've noticed as well, I still like to attend a class with another teacher or with other teachers as well. I try and do at least one class a week that I just like to go in as a student. But I really notice sometimes that, I look around the class as we're practicing, and some people are getting into positions that I feel like I feel like getting off my mat and saying, "Oh, please don't do that. You're going to really hurt your tissue long term." But no, so it does worry me, because people are still being turned out, and learning people to stretch, try to get into the deepest position possible. And people are still teaching like that all over. In fact, 90% of people are teaching like that, really. And it's actually quite scary. It really is quite scary. That on top of the lack of movement that people do in their daily lives nowadays as the norm, without formal exercise, just in their day-to-day lives. We're so automated now that we don't have to do anything for ourselves. So we are weaklings in comparison to what our ancestors were, centuries ago, when you had to physically do a lot of the work. So your bodies were much stronger and more robust just through daily living. But now it's different. And then these people go to their exercise class, their yoga class once a week, and their bodies are not in a fit state to be doing some of the stretches that they're doing, and then they're getting injured, and then they just think, oh well, yoga's not good for me, I'm not going back to that again. So we get a bad
Yes.
rep. We get a bad rep because of some other teachers, you know.
Right, right. And
It's
I
not
feel
good.
like people will injure themselves, and their go-to is to do more stretching.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that they got injured because they weren't stretching enough, but it's because they're not in control of their body.
Yeah.
And stretching more is not going to give you that control.
No.
Yeah, I know what you mean by feeling that a little bit of anxiety for that, because, people are generally, as you say, weaker because we're just not living life in our body. Like, we don't have a super physical life. And then what do? We go and stretch. And that is just sort of, as they say, adding insult to potential injury, where, what you need is, and this is so interesting because, as human beings, we're in such a different place now, where we're, obviously, just if you look at the way our body's designed, we're designed to like walk with long strides and be able to cover lots of ground. And we're climbers, right? Our body's designed for climbing and for crawling and for sitting on the ground and toileting on the ground. I mean, that is our legacy, I guess. Those of us who survived, we have that ability in our body, but we lose it over time because we don't use it. And so people have, I mean, everybody's heard use it or lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is one of the truest things, but people somehow get to, their adult life, and they think they've lost those abilities. They've lost their range of motion, their mobility, however they think of it, maybe their flexibility. And they think it's because they haven't been stretching, but it's because they haven't been using their body,
Exactly.
And I had a discussion with the community last week where we were talking about, well, isn't it inevitable that people are going to get old and they're going to dry up and all of that? But using your body helps mitigate that for much longer. You know what I mean? Like, if you're, you don't really have to surrender to that. You can maintain a juicy body if you're using your body. And again, like, just stretching isn't going to do that for you. You need to activate your muscles and your fascia and breathe deeply and give your body challenges, like, for holding postures and for transitioning and flowing. I think flow also gets a bad name sometimes too, because people don't have a lot of control in the flow.
No,
but you can teach that, right? You can practice
You-
in such a way where you teach people how to transition with grace and control. And then when they start flowing, they can maintain their grace and control. But again, it all comes through practice and experience, and really a good teacher, right? Who can really guide their students to develop those kind of capacities. And then it's just super important to give our students that encouragement that if you keep practicing this way, you're going to get a better long-term outcome. And I think we can say that because we see that is what happens, and people feel so good when they're getting into their 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're still able to do the things that they want to do.
You can tell in your class. I mean, people start, new students come along in their 30s or in their 40s, and they can't do things that my 90-year-old can do because they haven't been moving their body. And she's been a hardworking lady all her life, so she's got a robust body, and she's 90 and she's still managing to use it. She said, I've got arthritis in my spine, but I just move and it's fine. So it's what you make of your body. We've all got bodies that work well. Some of us don't, to be fair, if you've been injured or whatever. But if you've got a normal body, whatever normal is, then if you keep using it, you will still be able to use it into your 90s, barring any outside forces doing some damage to you, obviously. But so we just need to keep focusing on that. And I think when you compare a 30-something newbie that doesn't exercise in any other way to a 90-year-old oldie that does and always has done, then that's the proof in the pudding, I think.
I agree. I 100%
when you said
agree.
climbing, we're designed to climb. Apart from when I was a child climbing trees and things, I haven't climbed for ages, but that's another thing I can do, I've discovered. I always wanted to go of a climbing wall, didn't know how I would manage. So I had an opportunity recently to have a go at a climbing wall. And a lot of the younger people than me were like, they were really struggling and they couldn't get far up at all, and I had to come down. I just went right up that climbing wall like a
champ.
So I'm putting that down to practice in yoga in the way I do now, because my only exercise now is my activated asana and my daily walk with the hound there. And believe me, I take long strides when I am out walking with especially once I get her off lead, and even if she's on lead, I use a waist belt so that I can swing my arms and just have as free a walk as I possibly can. So walking every day, a couple of times a day, and my yoga, and that's it. And it's given me all these. I mean, I can't imagine not being able to move the way I can move for my age, and I would hate life if that was taken from me. So yeah, it's something that I really value more than anything. So
yeah, I love that you had to go at the climbing wall. That is just awesome.
I loved it.
And what a great discovery too. And you would have had like a strategy, right, for using your arms in that way, because you're using the same things that we use in the yoga practice. So
well, the way that I organized my arms, then I had the power to drag myself up the wall basically, and then the flexibility in my hips. I'm saying flexibility, but I mean my range of control. So how I could control my hips, because I've got quite short legs, and some of the bits that I had to get my leg to was quite a bit away. And I'm thinking, how do I get my leg all the way over there?
So you're basically doing like an end range movement, and you can still activate at end range. See,
so
fantastic.
I put down
that was a good test to put yourself to.
Oh, I loved it. So I'm going to do more of that. It was just an ad hoc opportunity that came up, and I thought, right, I need to maybe go. And it was quite a tall wall, but it wasn't an actual climbing centre with loads of different rock faces and things. But there is one about an hour's drive from me, and I'm thinking, I need to go to that and have a go at overhangs and things. So give that a try as well.
Or if there's like the playgrounds, I like going to the playground and using the monkey bars. That's what I do. And some like just even a nice bar, like you can like throw yourself over or like do the monkey bars or whatever. And yeah, it's like knowing how to organize your body so that you can do some of these things. It's so fun to have like movement options. And like that concept we talk about, like the circle of safety, to have like a wider circle of safety where there's more activities and actions you'd actually be willing to try, because you can manage your body. Even if it's a new activity, you can be pretty sure, as long as it doesn't include too much speed or risk, you can be in control because you have a strategy for movement and being strong in your body, no matter what you're doing. So, yeah.
It was good. I was really pleased that I didn't plan on that. Didn't plan on doing the splits. I didn't plan on climbing this wall, but I managed both of them just, without training for that specific purposes. But my body has become stronger by the by, and I can manage to do that now. So what else can I do? I've yet to discover more things about
Yes, you do.
Yes, I can't wait. So
what's next?
And as you know, I've got a new little granddaughter, so I can't wait to start exploring different things with her when she gets a bit older, and being able to climb trees with her, etc., etc. I'll be the
you'll just be prepared. You're going to have to chase her. They love being chased. So my grandchildren, you can't get me, Nana. So I'm running after them. So yeah, that's so much fun. It's so much fun.
That's really important to me, being able to spend time with my grandchildren and do everything with them, that's asked of me, not be a granny that has to sit on the sofa and read a book to them and that's all I can do, although books are very important. But no, I think being physically active with them is going to be so much fun.
I think it means a lot to them. Yeah, I've done so much bonding. I'll do a little bit of acro yoga with my grandson. My little granddaughter's just getting old enough. She's just 3 now, so we can start doing a little acro yoga. And yeah, they just have so much fun with it. We just end up in giggle fits, so it's it's just really good bonding.
Can't wait.
Yeah, just keeping our options open, right? Our movement options.
Totally.
All right. Well, I think we'll bring our conversation to a close, although I know I could talk to you all day, Angela. We always have so much we can talk about, and we'll probably, have you back because there's other topics I'd love to explore with you. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your journey and some of the things you're seeing going on in the yoga world, and how we I love that you're sort of aligned with my vision of sort of saving the world, in their movement, solving the movement crisis, helping as many people as we can with kind of this like message of hope and strategy for movement, where they can actually keep their movement options open, right, for as long as possible and enjoy their lives.
Totally. I mean, I'm at the stage with my classes now that I can actually see that it works,
Yes.
I'm that far down the line that I'm not just embarking on it. The proof is in the pudding now. I can see it and they can see it and they're commenting on it now as well. And then all these new people just appear at my classes. So because their friends have told them, so it's great. It really is great. And bearing in mind, I'm competing locally with much younger teachers, and I'm still getting young people coming to my classes as well, and coming to me instead of going to the younger teachers, which
the younger ones who are on TikTok.
Yes, exactly. I want to say the younger, more attractive, and the ones that like to show off all the fancy poses. And I just keep banging on about what good is that pose going to do you in real life, though? Like, come to me, and this will help you in real life. It'll help you climb climbing walls.
Yes. Yeah, and anything else you want to do, right?
If you
maybe
really want to do the
pickleball
splits,
is really
well.
popular now. Anything they want to do to have more control in your body is the key. Totally. That's how you learn anything new. So, all right. Well, love you dearly. And we will, of course, talk again, but I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody right now. I hope you really enjoyed our discussion, and we'll talk to you again next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for having me. Okay, bye.
Hi there, Denise here. I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if so, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can see the next one. And hey, if you're interested in learning more about what I do, I invite you to my free community called the Yoga Teachers Lounge. You can join that in the link below. And hey, if you want to work more closely with me and become an Activated Asana teacher, then head over to my website and fill out an application. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye for now, everyone.